In the sterile silence of the 42nd floor, where glass walls reflected nothing but ambition and cold fluorescent light, every employee held their breath. The voice that cut through the air was sharp as winter steel, delivered by a woman whose beauty was matched only by her reputation for ruthlessness. "Look at me like that again, and you'll be clearing out your desk before lunch." The words hung in the conference room like a blade suspended over every head present. Michael Thompson, a single father of 7-year-old Emma, maintained his steady gaze. He didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't bow his head in submission as others had done countless times before. Instead, something flickered in his dark eyes, not defiance, but a quiet strength that seemed to fill the room with unexpected warmth. His response, when it came, was delivered with such calm dignity that it left the notorious Ice Queen herself momentarily speechless. From that moment, the carefully constructed hierarchy of Blackstone Corporation began to shift in ways no one could have predicted. The 38th floor of Blackstone Corporation buzzed with mechanical efficiency. Here, in Manhattan's financial district, Victoria Blackstone ruled with an iron fist wrapped in Chanel suits and designer heels that clicked against marble floors like a countdown to Judgment Day. At 34, Victoria had earned her reputation as the most feared CEO in the industry. Her platinum blonde hair was always pulled back in a perfect chignon. Her Arctic blue eyes missed nothing, and her smile when it appeared never reached those calculating eyes. The media had dubbed her the Ice Queen, and she wore the title like armor. Emotions were weakness. Compassion was liability. Success demanded sacrifice, and Victoria had sacrificed everything human about herself on the altar of corporate dominance. 3 floors below, in the cramped quarters of accounting, Michael Thompson sat at his modest desk, surrounded by towers of invoices and spreadsheets. At 36, he possessed the kind of rugged handsomeness that came from years of carrying weight, not just the financial burden of single parenthood, but the emotional load of being both mother and father to Emma. His brown hair showed premature streaks of silver at the temples, and laugh lines around his green eyes spoke of a man who chose joy despite life's hardships. Michael had worked at Blackstone for 3 years, arriving each morning at 7 sharp and leaving precisely at 5:30 to pick up Emma from after-school care. He was invisible to most of the company's upper echelon, just another face in the sea of mid-level employees who kept the machine running while others claimed the glory. But invisibility was exactly what Michael preferred. He had learned long ago that keeping his head down and his heart guarded were the keys to survival. The first encounter happened on a Tuesday morning when the elevator system malfunctioned. Michael was climbing from the parking garage when he heard something that stopped him mid-step, the sound of muffled crying echoing from the landing above. He climbed quietly and peered around the corner. There, sitting on the cold steps with her knees drawn up like a lost child, was Victoria Blackstone. Her perfect composure had cracked, revealing something raw and vulnerable beneath the polished exterior. Mascara traced dark rivers down her cheeks, and her hands shook as she tried to compose herself. Michael's first instinct was to retreat, but something in her posture, the way she held herself like someone who had forgotten how to be comforted, made him pause. "Rough morning?" he asked gently. Victoria's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock and mortification. In seconds, the mask was back in place, but Michael had already seen beneath it. "Who are you?" she demanded, though her voice lacked its usual bite. "Michael Thompson. Accounting." He didn't move closer, sensing she needed space to rebuild her walls. "I was just heading to my floor." "Well, keep walking," she said, but there was uncertainty in her tone. Michael nodded and began to walk past her, but as he reached the next landing, he turned back. "Whatever it is," he said quietly, "it won't last forever." "Nothing ever does." Their eyes met for a long moment, and Victoria felt something shift inside her chest, a tiny crack in the ice that had surrounded her heart for so many years. Then Michael disappeared around the corner, leaving her alone with the echo of his words, and the unsettling realization that someone had seen her at her weakest and chosen kindness over exploitation. 2 weeks later, their paths crossed in the company break room. Victoria was struggling with the ancient coffee maker when Michael appeared beside her. "Try this," he said, pressing a specific sequence of buttons that made the machine purr to life. "It's all about the timing." Victoria watched as perfect coffee flowed into her cup. "Thank you," she said stiffly. "No problem." Michael filled his own cup, adding 2 sugars and cream. "These old machines have personality. You just have to know how to talk to them." "Do you talk to machines often?" Victoria asked, surprised to hear something almost playful in her own voice. Michael grinned, and Victoria felt that crack in her chest widen slightly. "More than I talk to people, most days. Machines are honest, they either work or they don't. People are more complicated." "Indeed they are," Victoria murmured, studying this man who seemed entirely unintimidated by her presence. "Sir," came a voice from behind them, sharp with barely concealed malice. Perhaps you should return to your duties rather than bothering Miss Blackstone. Richard Hawthorne, the company's senior vice president and Victoria's most ambitious rival, positioned himself between them with a cold smile. It's fine, Richard, Victoria said, but her tone had returned to its usual ice. I just wouldn't want any of our lower-level employees to get the wrong idea about appropriate workplace boundaries. Richard continued, his eyes never leaving Michael. Michael set down his coffee cup with deliberate calm, and Victoria caught a glimpse of something steel-hard beneath his easygoing exterior. I appreciate your concern for workplace etiquette, Michael said, his voice measured but edged. Though I think Miss Blackstone is perfectly capable of managing her own interactions. The silence that followed was electric. Richard's face flushed red, and Victoria found herself watching Michael with new interest. Few people had ever stood up to Richard Hawthorne with such quiet authority. How dare you, Richard began, but Victoria cut him off. Richard, don't you have the Morrison account to review? Her voice was silk over steel, and Richard knew better than to push further. When they were alone again, Victoria turned to Michael. That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably a little of both, Michael admitted. But some things are worth the risk. Victoria studied his face, searching for signs of calculation or ambition, but found only sincerity. It was unsettling and oddly comforting at the same time. That evening, Victoria did something she hadn't done in years. She left the office before 8 o'clock. She drove aimlessly through the city, eventually finding herself in a residential neighborhood she had never visited. Tree-lined streets gave way to modest homes with well-tended gardens and children's bicycles scattered on front lawns. She was stopped at a red light when she saw them, Michael and a little girl with curly brown hair and her father's green eyes. They were walking hand in hand down the sidewalk, the child skipping occasionally and talking animatedly while Michael listened with complete attention. Emma suddenly broke away and ran toward a small playground, calling for her father to push her on the swings. Michael followed, his laughter carrying across the evening air as he chased after his daughter. Victoria watched from her car as Michael pushed Emma higher and higher, the little girl's delighted squeals piercing the peaceful twilight. There was something so pure about the scene, so completely removed from the world of corporate warfare, that Victoria felt a sharp pang of longing for something she couldn't even name. When the light changed, Victoria drove away, but the image stayed with her throughout the evening. She sat in her penthouse apartment, surrounded by expensive furniture and award plaques, feeling more alone than she had in years. The following weeks brought an unexpected rhythm to Victoria's days. She found herself looking forward to brief encounters with Michael, passing him in the hallway, sharing the elevator, or discussing reports that didn't really require her personal attention. Their conversations were always professional, but underneath the surface, something else was growing. Michael remained his steady, unflappable self. He accepted Victoria's unexpected kindnesses with grace, but without fawning gratitude. When she offered him Broadway tickets, he politely declined, explaining that Saturday nights were reserved for Emma's movie marathons. When she suggested a particular restaurant, he mentioned he preferred cooking at home because Emma was a picky eater who lived primarily on grilled cheese sandwiches. The crisis that changed everything began on a Friday afternoon in November. Victoria was in her office when her assistant knocked urgently. "Miss Blackstone," Janet said, her face pale with worry. "There's been an accident." Victoria's blood ran cold. "What kind of accident?" "A water main break in the elementary school district. They've evacuated all the buildings, and parents are being called immediately." Victoria glanced at the clock. 3:15 in the afternoon. Michael would still be in meetings for another hour, unaware that Emma needed him. "Has anyone contacted Michael Thompson?" Victoria asked. I don't know. Should I?" "Never mind," Victoria said, already reaching for her keys. "I'll handle it." 20 minutes later, Victoria found herself outside Jefferson Elementary School, feeling completely out of place among the crowd of worried parents. She spotted Emma almost immediately. The little girl was sitting on a bench beside a harried-looking teacher, her small face streaked with tears as she clutched a pink backpack. Victoria approached slowly. "Emma?" she said gently. "I'm Victoria. I work with your daddy." Emma looked up with Michael's green eyes, wide with confusion and fear. "Where's Daddy?" "He's in a meeting, but he'll be here soon," Victoria said, crouching down to Emma's level. "He asked me to wait with you until he arrives." Emma studied her face with the serious expression of a child trying to decide whether to trust a stranger. "Are you the nice lady?" Emma asked finally. Victoria remembered the drawing Emma had made, and felt her heart skip. "I hope so." Emma nodded and scooted over on the bench, making room for Victoria to sit beside her. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the organized chaos of the emergency pickup process. "Daddy says you're very smart," Emma said eventually. Your daddy is very smart too, Victoria replied. He helps me solve big problems at work. Daddy's the smartest person in the whole world, Emma said with absolute certainty. He makes the best pancakes, and knows all the words to every Disney song, and can fix anything that breaks. Victoria smiled at this comprehensive list of her father's qualifications. He sounds pretty amazing. He is, Emma said firmly. But sometimes he gets sad when he thinks I'm not looking. The simple observation hit Victoria harder than she expected. She thought about Michael's quiet strength, the way he carried his responsibilities without complaint, and realized that even the strongest people needed someone to lean on sometimes. When Michael arrived 15 minutes later, running and wild-eyed with panic, he stopped short at the sight of Victoria, sitting calmly with his daughter. Emma launched herself into his arms, chattering excitedly about her adventure with the nice lady. "Thank you," Michael said to Victoria over Emma's head, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you." "It was nothing," Victoria said, suddenly self-conscious. "I just happened to hear about the evacuation." Michael studied her face, and Victoria had the uncomfortable feeling that he could see right through her casual explanation to the truth beneath. "Let me take you both to dinner," Michael said impulsively. "As a thank you." Victoria started to decline automatically, but Emma's excited clapping stopped the words in her throat. "Please," Emma said. "We could go to Murphy's, they have the best milkshakes in the whole city." Victoria looked at Michael's grateful face and Emma's hopeful expression and found herself saying yes. Murphy's Diner turned out to be a family restaurant with red vinyl booths and a jukebox that played songs from the 1950s. Victoria, who hadn't eaten anywhere that didn't require reservations in over a decade, felt completely out of her element. Emma chattered throughout dinner, telling Victoria about her school, her friends, and her elaborate plans for her upcoming 8th birthday party. Michael listened with patient attention, but his eyes kept drifting to Victoria's face, watching her unexpected reactions to his daughter's innocent observations. Victoria found herself relaxing in ways she hadn't in years. Emma's enthusiasm was infectious, and Michael's quiet humor drew laughter from her that felt rusty from disuse. When Emma spilled chocolate milkshake on her shirt and Michael produced wet wipes with practiced efficiency, Victoria realized she was witnessing unconditional love in action. "Can Victoria come to my birthday party?" Emma asked suddenly, directing the question to her father. Michael glanced at Victoria, clearly uncomfortable with his daughter's boldness. "Emma, Victoria, is very busy with important work." "I'd love to come," Victoria heard herself saying, shocking both Michael and herself. "When is it?" Later, as they walked to their cars, Michael caught Victoria's arm gently. "You don't have to come to the party," he said quietly while Emma skipped ahead. "I know kids' birthday parties aren't exactly your scene." Victoria looked at Emma, who was spinning in circles under the streetlight with her arms outstretched like she was trying to catch the stars. "Maybe it's time I tried a new scene," Victoria said. The weekend brought an unexpected phone call that would test every assumption Victoria had made about Michael Thompson. She was reviewing contracts when her private line rang. "Miss Blackstone? This is Captain James Rodriguez from the Navy Personnel Command. I understand you employ a Michael Thompson?" Victoria's blood chilled. "Yes. Is he all right?" "He's fine, ma'am. I'm calling because Mr. Thompson has been selected for a commendation ceremony honoring his service." "His service?" Victoria repeated, confused. "Ma'am, Michael Thompson served 3 tours in Afghanistan as a Navy SEAL. He was awarded the Silver Star for Valor and the Purple Heart. I assumed you knew about his military background." Victoria felt the world tilt around her. Michael Thompson, quiet, unassuming Michael who worried about his daughter's fever, was a decorated war hero. "I know, I wasn't aware," she managed. After the captain hung up, Victoria sat staring at her phone for a long time. Everything about Michael suddenly made sense: his calm under pressure, his ability to see patterns others missed, the way he carried himself with quiet authority. When Monday arrived, Victoria found herself watching Michael differently. She noticed things she had missed before: the way he moved with military precision despite his casual demeanor, the subtle alertness in his eyes that never quite relaxed. The crisis struck in the form of Richard Hawthorne's most ambitious power play yet. It started with an emergency board meeting called for Tuesday morning. Victoria arrived to find Richard presenting a comprehensive case for her immediate removal as CEO, complete with falsified financial documents and fabricated complaints. "The board has lost confidence in Miss Blackstone's ability to lead this company," Richard was saying as Victoria entered the conference room. "Her increasingly erratic behavior and poor judgment have put our shareholders at risk." Victoria took her seat, her expression calm despite the fury building inside her chest. Around the table, she counted faces, some supportive, some neutral, some clearly already swayed by Richard's presentation. Interesting theories, Richard, she said coolly. Do you have any actual evidence to support these claims? Richard smiled triumphantly and gestured to a stack of documents. Bank records showing unauthorized transfers, employee complaints about hostile work environment, and testimony from multiple witnesses. Victoria scanned the documents quickly, her trained eye picking out inconsistencies and fabrications. But proving Richard's deception would take time she didn't have. I'll need 48 hours to prepare my response, she said. I'm afraid we need to act immediately, said Board Chairman Harrison Mills. The shareholders are already nervous. Victoria felt the walls closing in when the conference room door opened and Michael Thompson stepped inside. Excuse the interruption, he said calmly. But I believe there are some irregularities in the documents being presented that the board should be aware of. Richard's face flushed with anger. Security should escort this man out immediately. Actually, Victoria said, recognizing an opportunity, Mr. Thompson is my senior analyst. If he has relevant information, the board should hear it. Michael approached the table and set down a folder. I've been reviewing the financial records mentioned in Mr. Hawthorne's presentation, and there are several concerning discrepancies. He opened the folder and began pointing out inconsistencies with the calm precision of someone briefing a military operation. Account numbers that didn't match the company's banking relationships, signatures that had been forged, dates that corresponded with periods when Victoria had been out of the country on documented business trips. Furthermore, Michael continued, these employee complaints appear to have been generated from a single computer terminal in Mr. Hawthorne's office, all filed within a 2-hour window last Thursday night. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Richard's face had gone from red to pale white. This is preposterous, Richard sputtered. You can't possibly prove. Actually, I can, Michael said quietly. He produced a flash drive from his pocket. Digital forensics leave very clear trails for anyone who knows where to look. Victoria watched with amazement as Michael systematically destroyed Richard's carefully constructed lies. Chairman Mills was examining the documents with growing anger. Mr. Hawthorne, these are very serious allegations. He's nobody. Richard exploded. A glorified bookkeeper who thinks he can. Mr. Thompson is a decorated Navy SEAL, Victoria interrupted coldly, and one of the most competent analysts this company has ever employed. The revelation of Michael's military service sent another shock wave through the room. Richard's face crumpled as he realized his coup had not only failed but completely backfired. As security escorted a protesting Richard from the building, Victoria found herself alone with Michael in her office. How did you know? She asked. I've been watching him for weeks, Michael said simply. His behavior patterns changed, staying late, accessing unauthorized files, meeting with people who had no legitimate business here. In the military, we called it operational security. Victoria shook her head in amazement. You saved my career. My entire life. Why? Because you're a good person who deserves better, Michael said softly. Because you took care of Emma when she needed someone. Because you make me want to believe that not everyone in positions of power is corrupt. The honesty in his words hit Victoria like a physical blow. She turned away, overwhelmed by emotions she had spent years suppressing. I don't deserve your loyalty, she said quietly. I'm not the person you think I am. Yes, you are, Michael said firmly. You just don't know it yet. Victoria faced him again, and for the first time in years, she let someone see her without the armor of professional competence. I don't know how to be that person, she admitted. Maybe it's time to find out, he said. That evening, Victoria made a decision that would have shocked her former self. Instead of staying late to manage the crisis fallout, she left the office at 5:30 and drove to Michael's neighborhood. She found him in his front yard, helping Emma rake leaves into towering piles that the little girl immediately jumped into with delighted squeals. Victoria parked and watched for several minutes, mesmerized by the simple joy of their interaction. When Emma spotted her car, she waved enthusiastically and ran over, dragging her father behind her. Victoria! Emma called out. Did you come to help us with the leaves? Victoria looked down at her expensive suit and designer heels, then at the yard full of autumn debris, and surprised herself by saying, I'd love to. An hour later, Victoria Blackstone was covered in leaves and laughing harder than she had since childhood. Emma had appointed her chief pile jumper, a position that required enthusiastic participation and complete disregard for dignified behavior. When Emma finally tired herself out and went inside for a bath, Victoria and Michael found themselves alone in the gathering twilight. Thank you, Victoria said, picking leaves from her hair. For today, for this, for showing me what I've been missing. What have you been missing? Michael asked gently. Victoria looked at the house where warm light spilled from the windows, where she could hear Emma's voice chattering as Michael's neighbor helped her with homework. She thought about her empty penthouse, her solitary dinners, her carefully controlled life that had room for everything except joy. Everything, she said softly. Michael reached out and gently removed a maple leaf from her shoulder, his touch sending warmth through her entire body. It's not too late, isn't it? Victoria asked. I'm 34 years old, and I don't even know how to be happy. I've spent so many years building walls that I'm not sure there's anything left inside them worth saving. There is, Michael said with absolute certainty. I've seen it. Emma's seen it. You just have to be brave enough to let it out. Victoria looked into his eyes and saw something she had never expected: unconditional acceptance. Not admiration for her success or fear of her power, but simple, genuine care for the person she was beneath all the armor. I don't know how, she whispered. Start small, Michael suggested. Come to Emma's birthday party this weekend. See what it feels like to be part of something good. Emma's birthday party was everything Victoria had expected, and nothing she was prepared for. Michael's backyard was decorated with pink streamers and balloons, and the house was filled with the chaos of 8 little girls hyped up on sugar and excitement. Victoria arrived with a carefully chosen gift, an elaborate dollhouse that had cost more than most people's monthly salary. Watching Emma's face light up with genuine joy made every penny worthwhile. It's perfect, Emma exclaimed, throwing her arms around Victoria's waist. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Victoria found herself swept into the party's activities with surprising enthusiasm. She helped with games, served cake, and even participated in an impromptu dance session. For 3 hours, she wasn't a CEO, she was just Victoria. A woman who had somehow become part of this warm, chaotic, loving family celebration. As the party wound down, Victoria helped Michael clean up while Emma played with her new dollhouse. She loves it, Michael said, nodding toward his daughter. I've never seen her so excited about a present. I've never given a gift to a child before, Victoria admitted. I wasn't sure what would be appropriate. You did perfectly, Michael assured her. Emma appeared at Victoria's side, tugging on her sleeve. Victoria, she said seriously, are you going to marry my daddy? Both adults froze, and Victoria felt heat flood her cheeks. Michael looked mortified, but Emma continued with relentless logic. Because if you did, you could live here with us, and I could show you how to make proper grilled cheese, and Daddy wouldn't be sad anymore when he thinks I'm not looking. Emma, Michael said gently, that's not how things work. But I want Victoria to be part of our family, Emma interrupted, her lower lip beginning to tremble. She makes you smile different, Daddy. Like you used to smile before Mommy got sick. The simple observation hit both adults like a thunderbolt. Victoria looked at Michael and saw the truth. Emma had recognized he was happier when Victoria was around, just as she was happier in their presence. Emma, Victoria said softly, kneeling down to the little girl's level, your daddy and I are still figuring out how to be friends. But I promise you, no matter what happens, you'll always be special to me. Emma studied Victoria's face with serious green eyes, then nodded solemnly. Okay. But I still think you should marry him. After Emma went to bed, Victoria and Michael found themselves sitting on his front porch, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the stars emerge. I'm sorry about Emma's question, Michael said eventually. She's been asking me for months when I'm going to find her a new mommy. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. What would you have told her if she had asked you that question? Michael turned to look at her. I would have told her that you're the most remarkable woman I've ever met. That you're strong and brilliant and beautiful, and that you've changed my life in ways I'm still trying to understand. Victoria felt her breath catch. And that I'm falling in love with you, Michael said simply. But I'm also terrified that I don't have anything to offer someone like you except a complicated life and a 7-year-old daughter who thinks grilled cheese is a food group. Victoria reached out and took his hand, marveling at how right it felt. Michael, she said quietly. I have a penthouse apartment worth $3 million, a closet full of designer clothes, and a bank account that most people can only dream of. But until I met you and Emma, I was the loneliest person in the world. She took a deep breath, gathering courage for the most honest words she had ever spoken. I don't know how to be a mother, or a partner, or even a friend, really. I don't know how to put someone else's needs before my own, or how to love without trying to control everything. But I want to learn. With you. With Emma. If you'll let me. Michael lifted their joined hands to his lips, and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. Are you sure? Because once Emma decides you're family, there's no going back. Victoria laughed, and the sound was pure joy. That sounds terrifying and wonderful. It is, Michael agreed. Both of those things, every single day. Michael leaned closer, and Victoria felt her pulse quicken as his hand cupped her cheek. Victoria, he said softly. I need you to know that if we do this, if we try to build something together, Emma comes first. Always. I wouldn't want you to, Victoria replied. The way you love her, the way you put her needs above everything else, that's what made me fall in love with you. Michael's eyes widened. You love me? Victoria nodded, no longer afraid of the vulnerability. I love you. I love Emma. I love the way you make me want to be better than I thought I could be. Michael's kiss was gentle at first, then deeper, as Victoria responded with all the passion she had kept locked away for years. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard and smiling. So what happens now? Victoria asked. Now, Michael said, we figure it out as we go. Together. 6 months later, Victoria stood in the backyard of what was now their house, watching Michael teach Emma how to hit a baseball while spring flowers bloomed around them. The transformation in her life had been so complete that sometimes she barely recognized herself. She had restructured her role at Blackstone Corporation, delegating more responsibilities while maintaining strategic oversight. She still worked hard, but she also made time for family dinners and school events, and lazy Sunday mornings spent reading in bed while Michael made pancakes and Emma practiced violin. The changes hadn't been easy. Victoria had to learn to share control, to ask for help, to accept that love meant choosing vulnerability over self-protection. But every challenge was worth it for moments like this, watching the man she loved teach their daughter about perseverance and the joy of small victories. Emma had officially asked Victoria to adopt her 3 weeks after Michael's proposal, presenting the request in a carefully written letter that included diagrams of their family structure. The legal process was underway, and Victoria had never signed documents that meant more to her. Victoria. Emma called from the makeshift pitcher's mound. Watch this. Victoria watched as Emma wound up with exaggerated concentration and threw a perfect strike into Michael's waiting glove. The celebration that followed involved jumping, cheering, and a group hug that lasted several minutes. Pretty good for a future CEO, Michael said, ruffling Emma's hair. I'm going to be a teacher, Emma corrected with 9-year-old certainty. CEOs have to work too much, and I want to have time for my family. Victoria felt a surge of pride at Emma's wisdom, recognizing her own influence in the little girl's understanding of work-life balance. As the sun set behind them, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Victoria thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From the sterile conference room where she had first encountered Michael's quiet strength to this backyard filled with laughter and love, she had traveled farther than she ever imagined possible. The Ice Queen was gone, melted away by the warmth of a family she had never expected to have. In her place was a woman who knew that the most important victories couldn't be measured in profit margins, but in the trust of a child, and the love of a man, who had seen past her armor to the heart she had thought was frozen beyond repair. That evening, as they sat around the dinner table sharing stories from their day, Victoria looked at Michael and Emma, and knew with absolute certainty that she had finally found her way home. Not to a place, but to the people who made everywhere feel safe and warm and full of possibility. The future stretched ahead of them, bright with promise, and rich with the kind of love that transforms everything it touches. And Victoria Blackstone, who had once believed that caring was weakness, now knew that love was the strongest force in the world, strong enough to heal old wounds, bridge impossible distances, and turn even the coldest heart into something warm and welcoming and wonderfully, beautifully human.